whether you should niche or not, right? How do you know whether you should dive in and get that niche? Now, the first thing I want you to understand is a concept is point number one, which is okay. All that to say, this is a transition where we move into the portion of this podcast where we're going to talk about Kyler's question, right? So Kyler had a question about creating content, and I'm going to allow him the floor to ask the question and to kind of bring the depth of the question to the forefront. And then we're going to go through the process of actually planning this video and how I would structure that answer, essentially. So what's the question and why did you have it?
So I'm a content creator, and my job is to make content, and I'm struggling a lot with niching. Whether or not I should niche, what niche I should, like there's so many different interests, so many different types of creatives, so many different industries I'm interested in, and I don't know, no one is really, or I haven't seen a video that really dives into the value of niching and why you should niche, because when you're starting as a creative, at least when I started, to just get a grasp of what I was interested in, I dabbled in a lot. It's just like trying food. You got to try different things, car videos, podcasts, interviews, all these different styles in order to develop your skill set, develop a kind of style. And I'm starting to understand what interests I have in content creating, where I want to lean. I love making videos is my number one thing. I think taking photos, shooting content is something of passion of mine, but I'm struggling with, from a marketing perspective, the value of niching. And so why should I really niche? Because I get lots of business inquiries from all sorts of different people that just want a video. They see you're a videographer on your Instagram. Oh, I'm going to contact this guy. I got a cool idea. And it's like, but if I say I'm a particular type, am I then scaring them off? So this is the kind of challenge I've had, and I want to know from your perspective, what is the value in niching? And I think you have a really good answer. I heard a little bit beforehand, but that was the root of my question.
Yeah. Okay. So while he was talking there, and we're definitely gonna need to put me in the corner and do that whole thing, right?
Oh yeah.
While you were talking, part of the questions that you had, or part of the layers of the questions you had, is what is the value of niching, right? Like, is there value? Is there not? Then you kind of mentioned, you having many talents or interests, and you want to try stuff. Like, there's a part of you that just like doesn't want to pigeonhole yourself, and you want to try different things. You're trying to establish your style, right? And should you niche further than just like videographer? Because already, in my opinion, being a videographer in and of itself is niching, right?
Like, really, because every single video that I've launched, it's like, they're a lifestyle or their product or their car.
Yes, but they're all video.
It's true.
You're not doing photography, brand design, and video. You're just doing video, right? You're also not necessarily scripting the video for the people. You're just executing the filming and editing of the video. You're not publishing the video for people necessarily. So you are in the niche of just creating the video, if that makes sense.
That's a good point, because what I see, at least on my Instagram and YouTube, is that people do many of those things. Like, they will make a script, shoot the video, and publish it sometimes. So like a bit of a production / agency. Yes. But to your point, if I'm niching, it'd be really just making the content.
Well, to some degree, in my opinion, you've already entered the niche of that thing. And I'd say that you even are carving out a niche with the work that you're doing in general, just here, but also in general. You've got a little bit of a niche now in podcasts, right? And creating video podcasts specifically. So there is also a niche upon which you are finding, like, you're accelerating and making more and more content in. Now, I understand that you're doing these other things too, and I think that the answer is obviously nuanced, okay? I think, so let me think about the answer very quickly, and then I'm gonna break it down, and we're gonna figure out the order of how I would communicate this answer and the logic of that order, so that eventually we can film and create the YouTube video at the end of this podcast, right? So my answer is, it depends on what your goals are in short, but yes, right? Like, the answer to me is, I do believe you should niche. Now, there's a few reasons that I thought about, because I knew we were going to talk about this topic, and I just didn't want it to take super long for me to sit here and think about it. But one of them is the consistency and expectations are key while breaking expectations as well. Meaning, if I think about all the best creators and YouTube channels and all the best people that I follow out there, they do have a niche, but then they break the niche every once in a while. And what I mean by break the niche is they break the expectation. They give me what I expect, but then they sometimes just like add it or do it a little bit different, or they break the mold of their own version of how they tell a story, or their own version of making a YouTube video, or their own version of making content.
Like Peter Mckinnon, you brought him up, right? Like, what's his niche? Or maybe that is like
camera hacks, video content production, content creating, and I would say high-end content creation, right? That's his niche. And then all the things to do with cameras, and so therefore the gear, the process by which he creates that content. But he doesn't talk about storytelling. He doesn't talk about how he scripts a video. He doesn't talk about how he picks and chooses what video to create. That's what I talk about. That's the storytelling and content creation portion I talk about, right? I don't really break down exactly how to use your camera. I'm focused on like the topics and the choice of the topics. He's focused on the process by which you take those topics and then make them into pretty images and sound. So that's definitely his niche.
So you need to watch Peter McKinnon and then Marc, and then you're set.
Or Marc and then Peter McKinnon.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Right? In a weird way, you kind of need to figure out what you're going to do before you watch Peter McKinnon. The difference is that most people will find Peter McKinnon or like Peter McKinnon because his content is very visually stunning. So his niche actually speaks to more of a mainstream audience as well than mine does. But I think that mine has more potential from a financial perspective than his does. In a way. Like, not in his case because he's already the top, like he's at the top. So it's
just an example.
But what I'm trying to say is that there's so many more people that want to do what he's doing, and there's a lot less people going to do what I'm doing. And realistically, my value is much more needed in every organization. But then they can find videographers and people to execute these types of things. Now, I'm not trying to say that videographers are less valuable than storytellers. I'm trying to say that there's probably more videographers willing to work for cheaper and trade their time for dollars than there are storytellers willing to do that thing. They're both necessary, right? And I understand both because I did videography and photography professionally for years. I did what you did or do for years, and I'm still doing it, just now I'm on the creative side of it and then kind of helping the production and doing different things, right? So and the studio in of itself is a part of that production, right? So anyway, now the other thing I want to say is niche doesn't need to mean audience, but also format and platform. So let me explain that. When you thought about the question, your version of the question was focused on, do I need, like, you were focused on topic, right?
Yeah.
Topic and or audience. Like, am I speaking to just this audience? Or am I speaking to just men? Or am I speaking to just content creators? Or am I speaking to this topic and only this topic?
You're right.
Right?
Yeah.
But the other thing, I think, is about the publishing side of it. Think about creating content for a very specific niche on the platform that you're choosing. So when you're creating for YouTube, I think you should be creating horizontal video. But if you're creating for Instagram, you should be really considering vertical video. So picking your niche, even from the perspective of format and platform, is important. Right? Where am I creating this content for? Where am I trying to build audience? Where is my audience that I'm trying to target?
Who am I trying to target?
And who? Yeah. So we can talk about the topic of audience, right? So, niche can have two large categories, right? topic, and audience, but it also has these subcategories, which is format and platform. Like what I'm creating for Facebook, or what I'm creating for Instagram, or what I'm creating for TikTok all impacts the art of what I'm creating based on the type of attention that's there and when it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Like
it's
I
different
go
types
on
of content.
Yes, but also like, why am I on LinkedIn? What's a valuable video on LinkedIn if I'm creating for LinkedIn? And then who's there and when are they there?
So you're saying you can have a niche for depending on the platform per se.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and understanding that niche based on the niche that is the platform to begin with. Because the platform in and of itself is a niche.
Because, so like LinkedIn, you brought up, right?
Yeah.
A lot of business people. So podcasting makes sense. If I were to talk about thinking LinkedIn, if my LinkedIn brand, I would focus on that side of video, right? As a logical kind of niche.
Yes. Or you could focus on like the best way to tell a brand story to attract more clients. Because why am I on LinkedIn? Well, I'm either there to attract talent or to attract clients for the most part. Talent for hiring in my company or clients for my company.
True.
Or clients for what I'm offering. And I say company because you could be a freelancer, so you're looking just for clients.
Yeah.
So you're either hunting or you're hunting. But LinkedIn is about hunting.
Yeah.
Now, Instagram is different. It's about exploring. Instagram has more of an explore mindset. YouTube has more of a learn mindset or an inform mindset, right? Get information, just receive information, right? Facebook is more of a connect mindset.
So you really actually take each platform as its own.
Like, I mean, they're different. Why do people go to these different platforms as different? Like, why is
like in
Facebook
the mindset,
groups?
it's different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you open the app for different reasons.
Yeah.
And the audience opens the app for different reasons. And they follow different accounts, or they connect in different ways. Like on Instagram, you follow accounts, whereas on Facebook, you follow pages to some degree, but and has some of that crossover on Instagram, but most of that has now found itself on Instagram. And or on TikTok or other places, Snapchat maybe even. But for the most part, you're now on Facebook to connect with people you already know, or in groups that you are kind of familiar with. So there's topic-based connection, right?
Yeah.
Whereas on YouTube, it's topic-based learning, but not connection. Because on YouTube, I don't really connect with other people. I can connect in the comments of a video, but not really.
Yeah. It's not made for it.
It's not made for connection. So the platform itself dictates your niche. Wow. And therefore the format dictates your niche as well.
That's a real eye-opener, honestly.
Yeah. So that was a part of the answers, right? Next is, I think niches tend to earn more money short-term and keep you in the game longer because of your cash flow, because cash flow is the thing. So what I mean by that is like, for you to be a really well-paid generalist, for you to like make money truly being good at a general topic, you have to have a lot of experience, because if you're good at a bunch of different things, and by the way, I'm more of a generalist, okay, at this stage of my career, but I was niche in these different topics for periods of time. Like I learned web design and development for a while and really focused that as a way of making money. Then I learned, and then simultaneously, I kind of started learning videography and photography, which goes very hand in hand with web design and development, because it's one of the next things that they need on their website is a video and things. Then I started learning copywriting more, right? And I trained and I started doing some stuff there. And then I got into more and more of like my own product production, which is where Superhero Academy came in, right? Now I also learned social media management and different things with the farm and with Superhero Academy and all these things. So I was learning these different niches, and now what I do is I consult as a generalist who has had specialties in each one of these categories. And I also consult as a generalist who essentially learnt not only myself, like the techniques and the best practices in these different niches, but also build depth in roster in each of these niches. right? And that's what I mean by depth doesn't just need to look like you learning the topic, but also sometimes where to turn to get the topic done or the job done nonetheless. Because at the end of the day, that's what people want, right? Like if you're hiring me to get a job done to grow your brand, you don't care if I do the work. You care that the brand grows.
Right.
Now, obviously, you want to do that within a budget, right? Obviously, you want to do that within a time frame. Obviously, you want to do that with some reasonableness around, your how much is going to come in based on whatever. Yeah. And it's a risk reward kind of thing. But what I like about being a niche is that if you get really good at a niche, you tend to, number one, raise your rates within that, because the people who are the best want to work with the best.
Yeah.
And therefore your rates skyrocket faster, and you're more likely to actually earn more money and stay in the game than it would be if you're trying to be a generalist. Now, I want you to think about this from a content perspective, right? And this is the last piece. You can generalize later, and most generalists came up through a niche or a break on a stage that itself is a niche. Okay? So like Joe Rogan came up through the comedy niche. He also came up through the UFC niche. Now, he combined those things and now has a podcast that is generalist-like, but it is still focused on comedy, still focused on fighting, still focused on some of the things that he is interested in, right?
So niching could lead to you being more general because you have more expertise.
You'll become a generalist later.
So I'm trying to skip that step necessarily.
I think you got to put in your 10,000 hours, right? So now let's think about this flow.
Oh my God, such a mind fuck. Jeez. I love it.
Okay, so now let's think about how I'm going to say this, right? So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm just going to follow the process that we had here, is we have an idea. Yes. So now let's research what's trending or relevant to your audience. Great. I did that earlier real fast, okay? I put in, should you niche on YouTube? Why YouTube? Specifically because this is where I'm creating the content for. I'm creating for YouTube. So now let's go and see what's coming up. Well, number one, we're saying why pick a niche is bad advice and what you should do instead. Okay. Counterintuitive to what I'm saying. That's fine. Specialize or generalize, niche or broad, what to do when picking a field. So I actually started watching that video because I know this guy. His name is Future, right? Or it's not his actual name, but I know that. Then you've got Gary. You've got Gary twice, by the way, right? And probably even a third time somewhere. And then you've got some other creators with the person who's dominating how to find a profitable niche for your social media in 2020. See, this person clearly made a title that was focused on gaining traction in 2020 because this is the conversation that people were having. So now let's look at this, right? And I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit so you can see. So I've got vidIQ, and I've also got something called TubeBuddy. These are both very good systems for figuring out whether this is very impactful. So what you're seeing is that the volume of this video based on vidIQ's analysis is that the competition is very low, but the volume is decent. Okay, and then it's saying here are the top channels, here are the top people. And then if I look at TubeBuddy, it's saying the volume is actually decently good, and the overall score based on the competition is also very good. So this is a perfect video to make into a help video because there's nothing that's come out recently. Like, most of these videos don't have the keywords written 1,000 times. The top creator is Vanessa Lau, which is the one that I was pointing out here, right? She's kind of my competitor in a sense. When I've looked for other videos about Instagram, how to make better captions, she's always coming up. So she's going through that, and she's got, look at the thumbnail, how to find your niche, right? Look at the video, look at the quality, look at the kind of
icon,
things.
the Instagram icon, the YouTube icon. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's componting, and then you've got title. Why you should stop worrying about your content being too niche. Look at the titles, look at the things that are coming out and how they're coming out, right? Your niche is being yourself. Like Gary's just taking these things, but then going after keywords and trying to gain traction within that through the strategy that I'm using as well. But I'm going at it a little bit more specifically because I'm not Gary Vee at this stage, right? I am in terms of, weirdly enough, I am in terms of kind of expertise. I think he's more of an expert than I have. He's a lot more experience than I do. But look, I've been in this space for, I've been storytelling. I've been an entrepreneur for 14 years, but I've been in the marketing space for 11. So I have some knowledge. I am an expert too. I have put in my 10,000 hours as well. He just put in, let's say, 20,000 hours. So he's just ahead of me in that way. But it doesn't mean that what I have to say is any less impactful. And in fact, you as a creator, you as an entrepreneur, you as somebody who's putting content out there, you don't have to be the world's best at something to teach it, to make help content, to make videos about it, okay? What you want to do is just know that there are people who are behind you, maybe 2 steps behind you, that you can help and who trust your judgment in doing that because they know that they can't reach Gary Vee and they can't afford Gary Vee anyway, right? So they can listen to his content, but his content is so generalized and it's so easy to feel like what he's sharing is out of reach because it is. It's a little bit out of touch. Like, I don't know that everyone should be making full-length pillar content and breaking it down to microclips necessarily. Like, I think it's good and smart for some people, the right characters, but there's a lot of nuance to that I don't think he really covers. And he tries to, by the way. But there's just so much, like, I don't know. There's just a lot of things that people go through. Now, there are these topics that are flowing. What we're seeing here is that I think the future is a good version of this, and I think Vanessa Lau is a good version of this. So Vanessa Lau is the one that I think is my competitor. She's the kingpin. She's the one, the average number of subscribers, average viewers, highest views, blah, blah, blah. She's the one who's she's taking it, okay? So we're going to go see.
What is up, everyone? Welcome.
Nope. I don't want to play your video. I just want to see what's in it. I want to see these tags. So we're going to copy these tags. Copy to clipboard.
Oh, wow.
And now we're going to go down here.
The work is already done for us.
Tags. And then these are the tags that she used. Now, I might change some of these tags, right? Later. I might put 2021 because this video is going to come out in 2021. But I also might put 2020 anyway because I want to see if I can get to be, what do I want to be? The suggested video. Now, isn't that interesting that the other person I thought would be a competitor is video influencers? How to find your niche on YouTube and stand out. Isn't that hilarious? Because that's the point, right? Your question, hidden in your question is, and I didn't write it here on purpose, how do I stand out?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the question behind your question. So this is the hook. This is what I'm going to say in the first 10 to 30 seconds of the video. So a lot of people are asking, no, should I niche? But the question becomes, how do you stand out? In a world where a bunch of people, how do you stand out? We're going to find out in this video. We'll dive in. And you'll get my answers to whether or not you should niche, and here's why. See what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really what you're after.
Yeah.
By understanding the motivation of what you're actually asking me, then I can make that and bake that into the hook itself. Okay? So I'm going to make a hook, aka first 10 to 30 seconds, that's going to talk about how do I stand out. Okay? In the rest of my answers, do I talk about the value of niching? Well, I do talk about the value of niching when I talk about I believe that you're going to generate more cash flow. Right here, sorry. That one. Right? So I do talk about that. People have lots of talents and interests, want to try stuff. Okay. I think I talk about trying things in kind of the consistency and expectations of are key while breaking expectations and the concept of 10K hours. Right? I do think that there's talk about style. So I could talk about style and then I can break that down. Where I can talk about style is who am I going to reference? What references or examples am I going to use? Right? Now, I'm going to use references or examples based on the platform I want to speak to. So in my world, the platform I want to speak to is YouTube. I am in the process of wanting to really grow my YouTube. If I had to pick a second platform, it's Instagram. So I'm going to talk about creators that are specifically YouTubers or Instagrammers. I'm not going to focus on creators like Jay Shetty, who's more of a Facebook creator. I'm not going to talk about influencer on LinkedIn because that's not where you're watching this, and it's not where I'm trying to grow. So me talking about references like Peter Mckinnon, who's a creator, is a good one. Plus, it's a good thing that I can put into the thumbnail. Gary V is another.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, here I am talking about how I'm going to reference these ongoing things, but I'm also coming up with title and thumbnail. Okay, so in the thumbnail, I think the words we should go with are, how do you stand out?
Yeah, for sure.
Not in the title, in the thumbnail. In the title, we're going to go after words like how to find a profitable niche in social media in 2020. Right? We're going to go with something similar to that.
You think people are searching that for finding your niche?
Well, let's figure it out, okay. Right? What they're searching. Let's just go back to should you niche or how to build how to niche online. Let's see what comes up with how to niche online. How to find a perfect niche for your online business. How to use Google Trends to find your niche. Right? See, the volume here is very low. How to niche online, very low. Right? Should you niche, which is what I had before, decent volume.
Okay.
So I agree that that's not great. Now, let's go back to this volume. How to find a profitable niche on social media. Let's look at that. Roughly the same, right? It's kind of going after very similar data. This one's a little less bad, and you're seeing different things. Best niches, but you're getting a lot of Instagram here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For your sites, there's like a lot of things. So I'm going to go with something like should you niche, how to find a profitable. Like I want to include elements of this title.
Right.
In what I'm creating. So how to find a profitable niche for social media in 2020 is her title. So now let's make our title. Right? I like should you niche. The so
to
maybe like
out?
No, the answer because it's how do you stand out is the thumbnail.
Right.
Yeah. Should you niche? The answer on whether you should find a profitable niche in 2021. So what I'm doing is saying, should you niche? The answer to how on whether you should find a profitable, like it's not perfectly worded. The answer the answer to whether you should find a profitable niche in 2020, and then I can do Instagram and YouTube. Now, what I'm going to do is also check the number of characters. Character counter, right? Just pull up a little character counter here because YouTube videos have 100 characters. So this one has too many characters. I have 100.
Can we take out weather? Because you already said should you niche?
Should you niche? The answer to
finding a profitable niche, or
the answer to whether you should find a profitable niche in niche in 2021.
Should you niche the answer to whether?
Should you niche the answer to whether you should find a profitable niche in 2021, Instagram and YouTube. So what I'm going to do is do IG and YouTube. Okay. So I just removed, because what I want to do is whether and how you should find a profitable niche in 2021. I'm trying to use the exact words.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I could add social media. I'm not. But the reason for that is because then I can go after being the suggested video. And for a while, if her video is getting traction, which it is, right? Let's go to her video.
Welcome back to my channel. In today's video,
Sorry, I'm gonna pause that, right? So we're gonna see she's getting 7.1 views per hour. Now, this video is not getting a huge amount of views, but it's still getting views. And if people are gonna see this and then see my video right after, I can maybe get 1 view an hour. But that's still 24 views a day. That will grow. And the people who see that information might like the way I share that information more than she shares that information. They might start watching this video and be like, and then go to the next one, which is mine. Or they might watch this and then want another opinion and see mine. The point is that I'm trying to piggyback on the growth of her video and the existing trend of her channel. Does that make sense?
100%. So it goes back to what you said earlier, like what's the goal? Who are you speaking to? What's the goal? So you did your research.
Yes.
You found someone that, is a competitor. You then looked at the title and then figure out the different elements of it. So we're coming up with the title now, and then we'll be moving forward the next few steps.
Yeah. So then visuals could be like a picture of me with...
Should get that picture you just made.
Yeah, with like side by side, and it can have the YouTube and IG icons with the words, how do you stand out? I think it should even say the words, should you niche, and how do you stand out? Okay, that's kind of
like a title and a subtitle kind of thing.
Yeah, like should you niche, bigger, how could you stand out? And that's the component of what they're looking for, right? Because that's what they're looking to do, stand out. They're looking to build audience. That's why they're listening to the video, right? So the video opens. You are creating content online, but sometimes it's confusing, right? So I'm going to speak to the state. The state that they're in is confused and unsure. They're unsure whether they should niche or not. So I'm going to cover this in this video. For now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 concepts in 5 key points, right? And then in the hopes to help you answer the question, how do I stand out? All right?
Yeah.
Then there's going to be an intro. So there'll be an intro, like an animated, like Superhero Academy logo or Marc Angelo logo. And then I'm going to just jump into the answer, right? So I'm going to intro myself real quick. And then I'm going to give them the answer. So it depends on your goals, but in short, yes. Here's how. Here's why I say that, right? In 5 key points. Boom. And then I can even mention that I'm going to reference Peter Mckinnon and Gary Vee because these are content creators that I follow and that are, important on the platform. And then I'm going to go through the process of consistency, expectations, blah, 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 blah. Now let's go through the process again of how I'm scripting videos, right? So I did keyword research. I scripted the video for the most part, even in bullet points. I scripted the hook. I planned the shoot. Now that I haven't done, right? Now I have an idea. I have one camera here, one camera there, one camera here. So I could take this camera and potentially bring it sideways to get a third angle. Okay. So I can use 3 angles in a way to kind of keep it super dynamic. And I can go from point to point to point to point. Now, what I like to do, and if you didn't already know this, is when I'm generally speaking, I tend to speak here. When I'm trying to make a very specific point, I'm going to look at this camera, because this camera is a little bit tighter, and I can lean in and just kind of get a little something going to it. And when I want a broader view, I would go to a wide angle. Now, in this case, we're not shooting a wide angle because it's on Kyler here, right? But in the future, or when I'm making a very specific YouTube video, Kyler's not in this video, I would basically be muting him, right? And it would just be me featured. So at the end of the day, that wide angle also adds an impact. Now, I also have the screen share here, which I can use. So these are the tools that I have available to me, but I also have editing available to me. Like, how are we going to communicate the visuals of this video? Now, part of the visuals of the video are just going to bring up visuals of Gary Vee and visuals of Peter McKinnon. We're going to talk about that. Then I'm going to talk about consistency and expectation. So we're going to work on this flow here in a second. But what we can do is take these 5 points and turn them into text on the video, right? So like animated text, point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, point 5, right? So I'm not sure that it's actually 5 points, because I don't really know exactly what I'm going to say with the 10K hour concept. I see that as more of an opener. But the long story short is that I'm going to come up with concepts, and then we're going to use the camera angles, general points, key point, broader view, general point, key point, broader view, to explain and express the story, okay? And then I'm just going to flow. And you're going to see that I might just flow fully, or I might actually cut and take the time to do, okay, I'm just going to nail the intro, stop, and then start the video over, like start the intro post animation. When I say nail the intro, I mean the hook. Nail the hook, get the hook down, then try it 1 or 2, 3 times. We'll cut that out. Then we'll have the animated intro, which obviously we're not playing here now. When we'll have the actual intro of me and the topic, and then the diving in point by point by point. Now, I might stop or I might not. It depends how I'm feeling and what the flow is. It also depends on my preparation. Now, I'm doing this preparation live, so normally I would have a little bit more time, or I'd give myself a little bit more time, but whatever, we're going for it. So, yeah, I think this is a great way of going about the process. So why don't we start, you can start moving this camera to get wide. So we're ready. We're basically ready to film this segment where I'm going to show you the BTS of me filming a very specific video for YouTube. Now, that being said, there are a couple of things that I'm going to change. Like, I'm going to mute Kyler's mic. I'm going to show you the different angles that we have here, right? And now I've introduced this third angle, which is now making the video all about me, because that's, well, what this YouTube video is about. Nobody knows that I've done this in this way when filming the video, right? When they're watching that specific video and I'm trying to gain traction on it. So with that said, I did come up with a little bit more, so I'm just going to let you know. I'm going to talk about 3 core YouTubers, again, focusing on YouTubers because that's where I'm putting this video. Peter McKinnon, Gary Vee, and Casey Neistat. And I do have 5 points, which I came up with one new one, but I'm going to let you figure that out in the video in and of itself. And I'm just going to remember, so I'm putting myself into the context of should you niche, the answer to whether and how you should find a profitable niche in 2021, IG and YouTube. Great. So for this setup to shift, 1, I want to remove a bunch of unnecessary stuff out of the scene. 2, I'm going to remove my headphones because I don't need to hear myself, and nor does a YouTube video have to have these headphones. I'm going to mute Kyler's mic because I just don't want any background noise or anything else other than this one mic being on and ready. And I'm going to put myself in YouTube mode, which means maybe I'm going to make myself look a little bit better. I don't know how this is going to come off on camera, but this is more the vibe of what I want to put out in terms of my look and feel if somebody who doesn't know me gets to meet me online, right? So there are a few downsides to this. I don't hear myself, so I don't know if I'm getting far from the mic in certain ways, and I also don't have the feedback of what Kyler can bring in, but this is different. It's YouTube. So let's get into that. Now, I'm going to focus on filming the hook first, and then I'm going to try and just flow through the other points as much as possible. I haven't fully scripted when I'm going to move to the different cameras, but I'm just going to trust that Kyler's going to be ready for that. and I'll go from, those different things. You're also going to see my character shift a little bit, meaning I'm probably going to speak a little faster, or I'm going to move to bring a lot more energy through the different segments of what I'm creating and filming. So, when I turn here, I might slow it down and really focus on a key point. Whereas I'm coming here, I'm going to speak a little bit faster and really try and get to the point so that people are paying attention in a very different way. See? Yeah, these are all important little details, but they're all part of the essence of storytelling. So with that said, I'm just going to take my first stab at it. Yeah, I'm just going to take my first stab at it. So we're going to start on this camera, and I'm very quickly going to go to this camera at some point, okay? So just be ready for that one. And I'm not going to use the screen share at all. Okay. Okay. Hair looks decent. All right.
Looks great.
Yeah. All right. 3, 2. So should you niche? A question that me as a marketer, I get all the time. And maybe you, an entrepreneur, creative, or influencer online is trying to carve out that audience, trying to break through, whether that be to your first 1,000 fans or maybe 10,000 or 100,000. You're trying to find a way to stand out. And here's the thing. There's this ever-aging question. Should you niche? Should you find an audience through specializing, or should you become a generalist? Because here's the truth. Some of the creators that you follow online, they kind of look like both, right? Like some of them are very niche and some of them aren't. So today I'm going to break down this question. Should you niche? And I'm going to use 3 very well-known YouTubers, Peter Mckinnon, Casey Neistat, and Gary Vee as examples, and why I think, actually I'll get to that in the video. Stick around. Great. So that's a decent hook. We're going to try another attempt. I'm going to try and cut to this camera. So I got what I kind of wanted. I'm going to try and just do a second version. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use. This is the truth. I don't know which one I'm going to use. We're going to decide this later in the editing room, but that gives you an idea of like that intro and those different components, bringing the topic into place, okay? And I didn't say 5 key points and those kinds of things.
Comb your hair just a little bit more. At the ends, there you go.
Yeah. Show me, just quickly. Okay, that's fine. This is real. This is real life, ladies and gents. Okay.
Where's the makeup?
Yeah.
Makeup.
So you can feel free. Anyway, no, I'm gonna go to the different camera. All right, let's attempt the hook one more time.
That was good though.
It was good. It was decent. All right, one more time. 3, 2. Niching. The age-old question of whether or not you should be a specialist or a generalist. And in 2021, when it comes to building an audience and figuring out how you can stand out, either as an entrepreneur, creative, or influencer, there's this question that comes up, like, what am I going to do to build this audience? So whether you're at finding your first, so let me actually just end. So whether you're just looking, imagine that you're going to be on this camera, and you're going to, you're just going to switch to this camera.
Okay.
Yeah. So be on this camera, and I'm going to look over at it. So whether you're trying to find your first couple of subscribers or trying to hit that $1,000, let me try it again. So whether you're trying to find your first 100 subscribers or hit that 1,000 or 10,000 threshold, the truth is that you want to find your audience. You want to build and grow so that you can build your presence and maybe your business and hopefully turn it into a career. But when you switch to this camera. No, we're going to actually switch to this camera. But when you think of creators online, you actually consider that many of them are quite wide in scope. I think of people like Joe Rogan and others that inspire me as a creator, but Well, I want to break things down from the perspective of YouTube. So I'm going to share with you the 3 creators I think come off sometimes as generalists or as specialists, and whether or not they actually are niche in audience. Now, we're going to cover these 5 tips. I'm going to switch to this camera, so you're going to go here.
Okay.
And I'm going to cover this in 5 core points because, well, I think that covers all of it. So let's dive in, shall we? Great. That's decent. I don't know. I actually feel like I did it better the first time, to be honest. I just know that it was all one angle, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing about this, I don't know if it's that big a deal, but cuts you off a little bit at the end. I don't know if you moved your chair or not.
Oh, what do you mean with the top of my head?
Top of your
Oh,
head,
yeah, no,
Cool.
yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, I think the point of this is just getting the component. Okay.
You gonna take 3?
Yes, I'm gonna do a take 3, and let's go with that. All right. Because I'm trying to hit the different points here. Yeah. So what I'm really getting is niching, audience, examples, back to this one, which is let's dive in. Niching, audience, examples, back to dive in. Great. 3, 2, 1. Should you niche? The age-old question that so many entrepreneurs, creatives, and influencers are asking themselves all the time. Because I get it. You want to build an audience. Maybe you want to find a way to break through the noise and stand out. And whether you're trying to find your first 100 subscribers, or maybe cross that 1,000 threshold mark, or even 10,000, 50,000, and you're trying to get out of the micro-influencer stage and build your audience, build your career, and build your, well, I'm going to dare say the word niche. The truth is that it's difficult to know whether or not you should be a specialist or a generalist. Now, I know that there are many creators online, some that I admire, somebody like Joe Rogan, who comes off as a bit of a generalist, right? He comes off as somebody who can talk about anything online, or same with Gary Vee or others. But here's the truth. I want to focus on 3 creators: Peter McKinnon, Casey Neistat, and Gary Vee, because, well, they're very specifically focused on creating on YouTube, which is where I'm planning on spending time and attention. And they're also very focused on Instagram, which is the other platform that I'm paying attention to. So let's dive in with the 5 key points that I think help you decide whether you should niche or you should generalize. So let's dive in, shall we?
That was good. That was strong.
Boom, strong, nailed it. That's the cut. That's what we're going with. Great. So now that's going to cut. Now, visually, I'm thinking they're just going to see an animation. Then they're going to come back to me giving them like, hey, my name is Marc Angelo, and I'm a storyteller. So I have to give them quick context, why they should trust me, and what that looks like. One of the things I added in here is I talked to them as an audience. I spoke to my niche by saying entrepreneur, creative, or influencer. So I want you, the person who's listening to this video as a podcast format, I want you to understand what I did there. Right? I tried it. I attempted it. I moved through the cameras. When I mentioned the word generalist, I went to the far angle, right? I went here. So I went from wider to tighter to wider. Visually, that speaks to exactly what I'm doing in this conversation. So there's a very beautiful flow between those different things symbiotically that's very subtle, but those who pay attention, specifically creators, will notice. I think will notice. So with that said, let's just dive into the points. What I'm going to try and do is do point 1, point 2, point 3, point 1, or point 4, point 5, something like that, right? Where each point I'm going to try and stick to a different one, but I might not do that. I might just go point 1, key takeaway, point 2, key takeaway, point 3, key takeaway, point 4, you know what I mean? Something like that, okay?
Like you said, like when you're using the tight camera.
Yes, I'm going for a key point. Really trying to drive something home. Yeah. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go into point number 1 here, okay? So I'm going to give my intro, and then point number 1. Great. All right. 3, 2. Hello, superheroes. My name is Marc Angelo Coppola, and if you don't already know who I am, I would consider myself a storyteller, somebody who, well, has found a platform online where people, well, want to turn to me to figure out how they can grow their brand presence and how they can tell stories effectively. Now, I've done this for countless brands and countless things that you've probably seen, brands that you know, but I was always behind the scenes until now, where I get to tell my stories and break down how storytelling is best done on social media in this day and age. Now, with that said, whether you should niche or not, right? How do you know whether you should dive in and get that niche? Now, the first thing I want you to understand is a concept that is point number one, which is the 1,000 true fans. I truly believe that your success online is dependent on you having 1,000 dedicated fans for everything that you're creating. Now, what that means is that you have 1,000 people paying attention to every video you're uploading, whether you're creating a funnel, whether you're putting out an offer, whether you're doing something online. You want 1,000 people to just be paying attention very, very, very quickly, because those 1,000 true fans and crossing that threshold first is important. Now, why that? Well, that idea, the concept of 1,000 true fans, is exactly why I think the answer to the question of should you niche, yes or no, is a little bit of it depends, but really, in short, the answer is yes. See, the only reason I say it depends is it depends on your goals. If your goal is to be seen as a generalist through and through, then I do think that making generalist-like content or covering the news or being more of a journalist could be a way of making content. Specifically, if you're making meme-like videos or you're making a brand page that's not specific to your character, but more so to a topic or idea. But even then, when I think about Instagram accounts, I think about that are not specific to a person. What I want you to consider is that most of the ones that perform well are specific to a niche: travel or food or entertainment or comedy or memes or whatever. See, to find your 1,000 true fans, what you have to do is set up expectations. And that's really what you want to kind of figure out. What you want to figure out is, what are people going to expect from you as a creator or as an account on these different social media platforms? And then how can you take those expectations and every once in a while shatter or move through them? And that's really point number two, right? Because you want to be able to allow people to see and experience your content in a way that they expect it. But yes, here and there, you want to be able to break the mold or find a way to kind of tell that story in a unique format. Now, my thought is, if you're looking to build this as a career, what you also want to communicate is that you've put in your 10,000 hours. Now, this is a concept that, honestly, I can't remember who invented, but it's something a lot of entrepreneurs talk about all the time. And whoever invented it, shout out to you. Maybe we'll plug that in right over here. That's YouTube magic, ladies and gentlemen. But that said, though, it's 10,000 hours. See, if you want to be seen as an expert, you want to get hired, you want to be the type of person that pays attention, what you want to know is that the person you're listening to understands what they're talking about. So if I told you that I've told stories and reached millions of people online, if I told you I have millions of followers on Facebook, Instagram, and own a bunch of Facebook pages, if I told you that I have a network of 350 million followers that I can speak to or that I can share my content to, and that I've done this for the likes of people like Gary Vee, who was actually our client, and we helped growth hack his personal Facebook content specifically, then maybe all of a sudden you understand that I am that 10K expert, that 10K hour expert, that I've put in the time and thought for making content online. So now you might be interested in taking my advice. Now, if I was doing this as a generalist, the likelihood that you would take my advice is very low. Why? Because generalists see the problem that they've experienced or that somebody is posing them as much less than somebody like me who focuses on creating content online and navigating those very waters with clients of mine for years, and if not at this point, over a decade. So I've answered these questions before. I've thought about the processes. I'm constantly researching the latest and greatest hacks. I'm constantly focused on the leading edge of what is going on in this space. And I'm understanding that specifically in a space like this, it's constantly changing, right? A few years ago, things like TikTok and Snapchat were platforms nobody had ever heard of, and Facebook was the king. But all of a sudden, Instagram and stories and reels and other things start popping up. So if you're not staying current, if you're not being the expert, then it's very challenging to grow in that space. Now, point number 3 is clear here because a lot of people get confused as to what niching might be or look like. Here's the thing. When you think niche, most people think about topic and audience. You're thinking about the idea of, am I going to stick to a topic? And you're worried about being pigeonholed in that topic or in saying, but I'm multifaceted. I want to do all these things. I want to talk about videography, but I also want to talk about what happened on the news. I want to talk about what's going on. I want to do travel videos. I want to do all these things. And I get it. I've made that mistake many times over. And in fact, I've decided only recently that storytelling was going to be my niche in a very powerful way after I had a very amazing experience out in Vancouver, but I'll save that for another day. Videos on my channel already. That being said, you're focused on the topic and the audience. In my case, I already referred to you as my audience. Entrepreneurs, creators, storytellers. I've already picked elements of who I believe my audience is in general. Doesn't mean other people can't watch it. They might, but in general, the type of person who will watch a video like this and click a video like this or search for a video like this probably is trying to build a business online. Probably is trying to be a creator that gains traction, or probably is trying to be an influencer that's getting paid to do such, right? But here's the thing. What about the other niches of format and platform? You see, what goes viral or works on LinkedIn is different than what works on Facebook. Facebook is about connecting. It's about niche topics and groups and where you get to connect with one another. Whereas on YouTube, there's not really that much connection. In fact, on YouTube, you're focused more on receiving, learning, and kind of digesting content, receiving news or going for the news. You're using it as kind of a front page where you can learn or explore in a very different way than you would on Instagram, for example, right? On Instagram, you are just scrolling. Yes, you're connecting in the DMs. Yes, you're connecting with certain things, but you're connecting with general topics that are wider in scope, right? They're wider from the perspective that they might have niche of travel, niche of food, niche of different things, but they can hit upon that topic in a wide variety that doesn't need to just focus on you, the character, delivering that content. But it could. All that being said, though, on Instagram, it is still niche topics. It is very hard to have a travel account and a account about storytelling, right? Now, your ability to combine niches could be interesting. Like it could be travel and wine or travel and food. It could be videography and travel. It could be a bunch of different little details. But to have a car account and to then try and make that a car and travel account, I don't know. Whereas a car and girl account or like hot girl account, I can see how that happens. A hot girl and tattoo account, also see how that happens. So even if you don't want to get pigeonholed to a single niche, I do suggest that you try and pick one or two pillars. How can you find a way to pick one or two pillars and focus on that? And with that said, right, as you pick those pillars, as you start creating that content, obviously you want to create the best possible content. Now, I'm not going to cover on how to do that, but of course, I believe that there's a game of quality that needs to be played in your niche for you to succeed, for you to find your 1,000 true fans, for you to be seen as that expert, and for you to be hired and turn this into a career. But with that said, who do you want to hire, right? Who would you pay more to if you had to pick between a generalist and a specialist? Between somebody who's really, really, really good at something or really, really good at understanding many things. And the truth is that the answer might be both depending on your problem. But most of the time, if you're identifying the problem and you're searching for that problem online, you're not searching in vague. You're not searching how to do social media. You're searching how to grow a YouTube channel or how to solve a very specific problem. And if that's the case, you going niche with your topics, you being a very good specialist in what you do will get you paid more quicker. Because if you become one of the best at something, the likelihood that people are going to want to hire you for that very specific thing is higher and higher and higher, and your price point goes higher and higher and higher. Whereas to be a very good generalist and get paid to do that, which is something, by the way, I am doing now, it comes on the backbone of years of experience, having been a specialist in these different verticals, having made websites and design and focused on bringing clients to the table for that. Having been a photographer or videographer for years, or even having made content and done social media management for years online as well. So with that said, I became a specialist in these different ways. Now, how does this apply to others? I mean, let's think about Joe Rogan or Peter McKinnon or Gary Vee. I mean, Gary Vee might be seen as a specialist, or in some ways that he's really good at social media, he's really good at entrepreneurship, but I think he talks about all kinds of stuff. I mean, he's going off about NFTs and a bunch of other things. But the truth is that he's actually a specialist in the fact that his niche is attention. He's kind of like me, an attention broker. He focuses on underpriced attention. And wherever that attention is and whatever they're talking about, that's how he's going to go and get real estate in that topic. Peter McKinnon, same thing. Yes, he talks about Lightroom and photo and this and travel and all these things, but they're all related to creating content in a very visually stunning way. And he gives you the how-tos on how to do that yourself. He used his niche of how to make really good content, keywords, how to help you, right? As a way of growing his channel and then getting people to pay attention to his vlogs and his travel content and his Instagram and all the other things that he now talks about, like what he carries in his pocket or what switchblade he has, right? But they're all focused on that one core seed that got him to that platform to begin with. Same with Casey Neistat. Casey Neistat focused on making, or in my opinion, he made the vlog popular. He was not the first vlogger, but he was the first vlogger to do it in a way where the storytelling was impeccable. And what I mean by that is it wasn't just him filming his day. He was thinking about a storyline, a title, and a thumbnail before he went out. Now, not necessarily every day. Like he would maybe discover it throughout his day, but then once he got into the editing room, he knew what story he was telling. Even Joe Rogan. Rogan is a specialist. He got his platform or his start through comedy, through the UFC, and yes, through the niche that is, reality TV with Fear Factor. But the truth is that most of his podcast, when it first started, was him interviewing comedians and him interviewing fighters and talking about those two topics at length. Over time, as he grew in popularity and his interests widened and his platform was wider, he could widen out. But even news anchors, based on the stage that they're on, if you think of a Jimmy Fallon or a late night TV host of any kind, or a news anchor on Fox News or CNN, even though on CNN they can be talking about a bunch of different things, there's still a niche audience. Maybe it's left or right on the political spectrum. Maybe it's the kind of person who wants to pay attention to the news in this format, or even the niche audience that watches the news at a specific time of day. See, the platform and the format dictate whether or not somebody might be paying attention, and creating content for that platform or format is important. And I believe that your biggest success is going to come from you embracing your niche, embracing that you do get to niche and that you can widen out later, because there's nothing stopping you from being a generalist later. And that's the last point, right? Why are you worried about being seen as a specialist and pigeonholed when if your audience or your 1,000 true fans become super dedicated, sees your talent, sees your interest and your passion in other things, and then maybe might want to follow you into those categories or into those different verticals or even into the different formats and platforms that might look different than YouTube does, because YouTube tends to be more horizontal, whereas Instagram tends to be more vertical. That's what I mean by platform and format. Different people are there for different reasons. Different audiences are there for different reasons, and different discovery methods are happening on those platforms. So with that said, I just covered all the 5 different points on why I think you should be niching. So why don't you take the time to figure that out? Why don't you take the time to figure out what that niche might look like? And why don't you take the time to hit that subscribe and notification bell, because that's exactly what I'm talking about on this channel. Breaking down how you can tell better stories, build a better brand, and turn your passions into profits. So I'll see you on the channel. So don't stop recording. That's it. That's the video. See, there's a little bit of fluff. We might come through there and cut out, and I'm going to look at this now, cut out different components of what we created and did, right? And I'm going to unmute you as well. You're mic number 2. Yeah.
Test.
Yeah. So, we're going to wrap up this podcast real fast, but that gives you a concept of how I planned this content here, went through these different points. I kind of rambled a little bit. It was a little long for sure, but in general, I think I hit upon the different points, and I think we can cut the fat and then prepare. I think we can take some of the points and also add text to them in certain moments. And there's definitely a reel or two in there. And I also think that the thumbnail could include Casey Neistat, Gary V.
Yeah. You know what I loved about this whole thing is that you didn't over plan, which is a real struggle of mine personally. I think a lot of creators is that they over plan. They write out a detailed script, and some people that works for them. But I find like you did the right amount. You planned, you knew what you're talking about, but you didn't script it.
Yes, exactly. And like, look, this is a concept I came up with like literally an hour before you walked in the door, and like all of a sudden this is what we're doing, right? And everything that we saw on this podcast was discovered in the hour that it took to do the podcast, or an hour and a bit that it took to do the podcast, plus a little bit of thought process and planning before. Very, very little. So you literally live saw exactly the process that it takes for me to make content online. And the beauty of that is that I have this video switching system that supports doing something like that. And I break that down in a freaking free mini course that you can go and find in the description, in the links down below, where I talk about how to start a successful video podcast. Now, I say podcast, but it could be a show. You see, you just witnessed a show. You just also witnessed me using the exact same equipment to make a YouTube video. So I really suggest that you consider your process and determine what that process looks like. And your process, by the way, might be a different form of content. It might be written. It might be Instagram stories. It might be just audio. It might be Clubhouse for all I care, right? But figure out what that process looks like, and then how do you plan making the right attention grabbers? How do you plan that content for the platforms that you're creating for and on? So with that said, I think it's good. I think it's enough. By the way, you could go find the video. We're going to release that full video, Should You Niche, right before this podcast. Meaning this video is going to come out, then the podcast is going to come out showing how we made that video. That's the point. Okay, so you can go find that on the channel. While you're there, you might as well hit the subscribe and notification bell. If you have questions, you can leave them down in the comments, or you can text me. You can find me, DM me on all the social media platforms. You know where the links are, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you in the next episode. Ciao, bye.